With 73 days to go before the midterm elections, the Trump administration is ramping up its efforts to undermine confidence in those elections. But as hard as the president tries, it's not really working all that well, not in the courts and not in the court of public opinion. According to Democracy Docket, the DOJ has attempted and failed 23 times to obtain unredacted voter rolls from the states. Both of Trump's executive orders to overhaul election rules have also failed in the courts. This has been a bracing reality check on his own power. So, what will the president try next? Apparently, the new plan is to send election monitors to polling sites on Election Day. Take a listen.
In and out since the 1957, the United States Department of Justice Civil Rights Division has sent monitors to election hotspots, polling places, to increase voter confidence, to troubleshoot problems. And we are doing that now. We just did it in the primary. We're going to do it to the tune of approximately 1,000 election monitors in the November election. And this is just something that DOJ does.
The DOJ says it will dispatch approximately 1,000 election monitors to the polls in November. Harmeet Dillon, you just heard her, the Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights, is correct that the DOJ has in the past sent monitors to election sites. But generally, those monitors have always been deployed to protect minority and disabled voters from discrimination in voting. They haven't been used to monitor voting fraud because, according to countless studies, surveys, and investigations, voter fraud is incredibly rare in American elections. What this is, perhaps, it's just another example of President Trump trying to sow doubt in our electoral system, to try and intimidate us, to make us question the democratic process. But a new report out this week shows that it's not working. You might remember last month when the president gave a huge primetime speech focusing on our elections, more specifically on the 2020 election, which he lost. That's right. 6 years after the fact, the president continues to flog unfounded claims of widespread voter fraud and foreign interference at the state and federal levels. Take a listen.
Our elections were left vulnerable to being rigged and stolen, and the trust of the American people was lost.
Well, the American people aren't buying what he's selling. A recent YouGov poll and a survey of 568 political science experts showed that since the president gave that speech, there has been no measurable change in public confidence in the expected integrity of vote counting in the upcoming midterm elections. That's according to Bright Line Watch, a group of political scientists that monitors American democratic practices. In other words, Americans don't believe the president when he spews unfounded nonsense about voter fraud. The co-director of Bright Line Watch told MS Now, quote, "One measure of success would be a big change in public opinion. We didn't observe that." But just because it's not working doesn't mean that the president will stop trying. And state and local officials are raising the alarm. This week, state election officials met with the Trump administration for a rare election security meeting. And according to VoteBeat, tensions at that meeting reached a fever pitch. The call included the administration's Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, also known as CISA. Historically, CISA has been a reliable resource for helping states secure their elections against cyber attacks and foreign interference. But in his second term, President Trump has scaled back support for states by cutting CISA's funding. According to VoteBeat, on the call, state leaders said CISA, quote, offered no concrete support for the 2026 election, which is less than 90 days away. Arizona's Secretary of State, Adrian Fontes, a Democrat, reportedly could not contain his frustration, not only with CISA, but also with the man behind all of this, President Trump. Fontes told CISA, quote, "Your boss came out there and said, we're going to criminalize the work you do. Why should we trust you?" CISA did not respond to VoteBeat's request for comment about that call. But Adrian Fontes, the person who issued that warning, and Arizona's Secretary of State, is here and joins me now. He is running for re-election in November. Secretary Fontes, thanks so much for being here this morning. The president has vowed to prosecute state officials like yourself if the DOJ finds evidence of voter fraud in the upcoming elections. Are you and your fellow election officials across the country worried about this new threat?
No, we're not worried about the new threat. We get DOJ monitors out in places like Arizona and so many other prior pre-clearance areas. Election monitors are going to, actually, we welcome them because what they're going to see is very well-run elections across the entire United States of America. And if they're monitoring for the benefit of voters, great. If they're monitoring so they can figure out better ways to help us do our jobs, great. But if they're monitoring so they can dig up some little scrapes of non-existent evidence so they can fake up some kinds of allegations in the future, that's the problem. And unfortunately, they've put themselves in the posture of being adversaries against election administrators instead of partners with election administrators to do things better for voters. And so that's where the real problem is, particularly with this Department of Justice.
Well, so this Department of Justice also seems to be very focused on intervening and with more federal control over elections. As you know, the Constitution vests the authority to conduct elections with the states, not the federal government. But the president is arguing that greater federal oversight is necessary to ensure election integrity. Do you think that consolidating control of elections in one body, the federal government, or just the idea of more federal intervention, is that going to make our elections more secure or maybe even less secure?
Well, it's been argued by security professionals across the United States of America that one of our greatest strengths is that elections are run in most cases at the most local level. You've got municipalities, townships, counties who are actually the folks doing the work. Here in Arizona, for example, we're a bottom-up state. All 15 of our counties get rules issued by the Secretary of State, which is me. And they execute the rules. They're the ones that purchase the equipment after we've certified it. They're the ones who actually have contact with the voters. They're the ones who input all of the data into our voter registration systems. We actually don't touch that data. It belongs to them. We're just kind of the keepers of the database, if you will. And that's a strength because you'd have to go through and understand a whole different panoply of different levels of governance, different ways of executing elections in order to really upset the apple cart. And that's why we have such good confidence in our elections. Yeah, so to really answer the question, there's no need for federal interference. We need federal assistance and federal support. But this chipping away of confidence on the part of this Department of Justice and Department of Homeland Security is it's inappropriate and it's unhelpful, as one of my colleagues had said.
Well, other people have also pointed out that this is unhelpful. So Kristen Clark, who is now part of the NAACP's General Counsel and used to be the former Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights at the Department of Justice, shared this perspective with our friends on the weeknight. Take a listen.
This election monitoring effort is something that we should all be skeptical about, and I think something that officials should resist. If this Justice Department comes knocking at your door, tell them you're not needed, that you'll focus on the issues they claim that they're concerned about. They are there for no good purpose but to cause mischief.
So you heard her. You've also heard the president say that he will prosecute those election officials where there is evidence of voting fraud. Do you feel like, given those conflicting perspectives, that you actually do have the opportunity and option to resist here?
Well, resistance comes in a lot of different forms. And listen, let's just remember, right after the civil rights movement, the Department of Justice, who was a friend to voters and a friend of the democratic process, did get resisted by folks who were trying to keep voters from voting. So there's this natural back and forth and this pull and tug between locals and the federal government. And I think that tension is healthy, but it illustrates the prior point. This is a system that is run well by states. It is our constitutional duty. And this interference is really problematic. And in some places, fine, if they want to resist, that's fine. It's still a free country. They can do what they want in their own states. We're going to welcome them. We don't have anything to hide. We don't have any issues But for the typical stuff that happens here and there, the church lady forgets to bring the keys early enough to open up the polling site on time, or power gets shut off for some reason because of a construction crew down the block. These are the things we deal with all the time in election administration. The problem is that bucket of typical issues is now getting more full, and it's getting full of this Department of Justice crap that they kept throwing at us for no reason whatsoever. Like, we need partners, not adversaries. I keep trying to tell this to the government, the federal government, and they keep listening to the one guy who can't get over the fact that he lost one race. For God's sakes, I was on the exact same ballot running that exact same election. I lost my own race too, but I didn't moan and whine about it. You take your losses like a man. Well, a lot of us do. Some of us don't. And you move on. I mean, that's what we should do in this country. That's what the fair fight is all about.
So last week at the Hutchins Forum in Martha's Vineyard, I heard Mark Elias, who, as you know, is doing amazing work in trying to secure elections around the country. He noted that for him, the greatest threat to the upcoming elections was not sort of the big intervention, troops rolling into cities or troops at polling sites, but ordinary things like the threat of bombs at different polling sites, which require those polling sites to be shut down for long periods of time, suppressing the vote in those areas, or even road closures at areas near polling sites, which will prevent voters from getting to the polls in time to cast their ballot. Are you worried about those kind of quotidian threats to the election and just getting voters in a situation where they can't actually get their vote out in a timely fashion?
Yeah, thanks for the adjective. I'm going to have to look up later. But the bottom line is this. Like in Arizona in 2024, as an example, we had 15 different bomb threats on election day across the entire state. But we didn't have any significant closures of polling places, 1 20-minute delay in a very rural county. But other than that, it was not an issue. It didn't even make headlines. Why? Because we were prepared, like elections officials are always prepared. Listen, we run elections through a civil war, through the Spanish flu and COVID-19, through fires and floods and earthquakes. In fact, after the Lahaina fire, elections officials went out and found voters so that they could get their ballots cast. We, elections officials at the state, the county, municipal level, we are the representatives of the grit that has made this country survive all of the challenges that it has survived. We are the example of working for each other as fellow citizens, because it's citizens who run these elections. Veterans, retired teachers, those poll workers checking IDs in Arizona, those folks back at the warehouse making sure that the stuff moves at lightning speed so we can get it done. We are the folks who this administration are throwing under the bus. We Americans are being divided against each other by an administration that is led by one guy who can't get over it. We are going to stick together. We are going to have a great election, come hell or high water, because that's what Americans do.
All right. Arizona Secretary of State Adrian Fontes on the front line. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thanks for having me.